All right, today on the Dirty Diggler podcast, we have Barrett, the wartime janitor, core contributor, and founder of Cypher Protocol. Welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here, my man.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so tell me, what was the childhood moment when you knew that you were going to be a derivatives builder on Solana?
Yeah, the childhood moment of that. I don't know if I really had a childhood moment for that one in particular, but I think like for being a entrepreneur, I have been in like adrenaline and action sports my entire life. And I think being an entrepreneur, like doing something on your own, is about as close as you'll ever get behind a keyboard, right? To the feeling that I chase every time I get outside into the mountains. So I think it
Ooh, I
was
like
just
that.
instilled in my blood from day zero, effectively. I was never gonna have a normal job clocking 9 to 5 anywhere.
Nice, solid answer. What were your top sports?
I used to be a sponsored skier and then
Oh
rock
no shit.
climbing, but like pretty
Nice.
much anything that you got to really focus on
Yeah, yeah.
for your life's sake, I was into.
I was more of like a put on the protection team sports kind of guy. But I'm fully with you. We kind of grew up in that like Red Bull saga where it just sort of took the world over.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, man, Nitro Circus and stuff like that. Not to fully segue away, but that's sweet. Okay, I guess we'll delve a little deeper. Tell me, how did you get into crypto? Give me a little TLDR on the life.
I mean, originally got like introduced to it, I think, like a lot of people did back in 2012 through poker on the internet, and then kind of fell off. Paid a little bit of attention to it, but didn't really do anything in it. And then my buddy Edgar, who's founder of Margin, he was looking at it again in like 2017. Chatted with him about it. Couldn't really build anything of like meaningful application scale yet, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so didn't really like pay attention to it again. And but I've like that's like how I got into it. And then when I ventured off and I left the last startup that I was a part of to do something on my own, I had built a recommendation engine for private capital markets. So if you were a startup, I would recommend investors that were, aligned to your company, your round, etc. And if you're an investor, it would recommend startups that were aligned to your portfolio. I have like a background in math and finance and data science and natural language processing. So a lot of that was kind of where it started. And then I was like, okay, like, hey, this is
Sick.
like a good way to somewhat democratize access to this type of information. But it really didn't get to, a level playground for everybody. And so we were going to build a platform to trade pre-IPO assets, right? And that's kind of where it all began. And, you know, looked at doing it in kind of the traditional financial route, but, tens of millions of dollars, a long time for licenses for something like this. And so we're like, okay, like how do we accomplish this goal today? And then was like, okay, like DeFi is like starting to become a thing. This is like early 2020. I was like, okay, doing research, etc. Like what chain to build on, what excites me. Got linked to Solana and ended up having a conversation with Ben Sparango and was like, oh, okay, this is like a blockchain that you can build an application that can have real time financial markets in a way that traditional vendors or traditional players have accessed them right through order books, right? And at the time, there was an order book already built on Solana that we could compose on top of. And so it was just kind of like an easy choice, right? It was super fast, it was super cheap. And that's just how, we started on Solana. And I quickly became anybody that I talked to, like I would shill Solana to. It's like, this is like, if you want to build in crypto, whether that's financial markets, whether that's, another application, consumer application, to me, it made sense to be built on Solana. So like, I dragged everybody I could in.
That's sick. Yeah, I was reading a thread. You were on it, and and you dropped kind of a list of the people that you helped bring into the space, and I was like, did not know that. That is sweet. And then one of my questions was going to be, what gave you the early conviction? But you just kind of fed it all to me. It's the speed, it's the tech, it's the Bloomberg terminal style of information flow and cheapness of transactions. And it's like,
yeah,
that's why I'm here.
And building a DeFi application, I'm a huge order book guy. I believe that if you're going to have the world financial markets on chain, then it's going to be on a platform or a chain that can support an order book at the end of the day. And I still think today it's Solana, especially as Fire Dancer's launch is looming, and I'm sure that's going to add quite a bit of throughput capacity to the chain. And obviously, like extra reliability given a new client or a second client, I should say. And so that's definitely something that I'm super excited about, and I know a lot of people in the ecosystem are as well.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Like the network reliability portion of everyone's traditional Solana FUD seems to be fizzling each week that goes on, and that's sick.
The goalposts moving will never stop, but that's okay,
Totally. It gives us more time to be early.
Exactly.
Can redo 2020 all over again at a marginally higher price, but not too far away. Not too far. Anyways, enough of that. Okay, you just told me a little bit about the past and why you got in the derivative space. Now tell me about Cypher. Tell me about the perps offering. Go for it.
Yeah, so originally we were pre-IPO. Cypher was pre-IPO derivatives, and then the protocol moved into kind of being this generalized DEX infrastructure on Solana, right? I think that at the time there wasn't really any great options for a true like one-stop shop, everything like DeFi related, right? Borrow, lend, trading spot, perps, futures, options, etc., right? And Cypher was built and is continuing to be built with the vision of truly being able to replace these centralized counterparts that you see, massive today, like Binance, KuCoin, etc., right? And bring that on chain, right? And that's kind of the 100,000-foot view of what Cypher is and what we have been building towards. And we're pretty close on like a lot of that, right? Cypher has borrow lending, it has spot trading, it has derivatives trading, it has the ability to have any sort of derivative with a defined payoff function kind of encompassed into its markets. And I think that that's something that's incredibly important, especially as DeFi evolves and becomes something that you see larger players really interacting with on a more regular basis.
Love it. And I want to get deeper into the protocol, and I also want to take a moment to address a bit of the elephant in the room, and then I'm going to work backwards from there.
Cool, yeah.
So talk to me about the exploit. Talk to me what went wrong, and then we'll go a little further into it from there.
Yeah, so I mean, like the high level view of the exploit was there was an issue with the calculation for collateral ratios in between C accounts, in between sub accounts, I apologize. And that enabled a individual to wrongly withdraw more assets than they deposited. And that's kind of, the general view, like the general architecture of the exploit that happened on Cypher, which is an unfortunate thing, but it did happen, and we're doing everything that we can to make the situation right by the users on the platform. And so that's really what it was.
Okay. Silver lining. Is there any silver lining that you take from the experience, whether it's personal or protocol level?
I think that there's a couple of silver linings. One is that a lot of our community stood by us, stood by the protocol through the exploit. Yeah, we caught a lot. Yeah, it got a lot of heat, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, we didn't just pack up shop and kind of roll over. We, worked with the community to come together with what we believe is the best solution for the protocol going forward to make users whole. And yes, that will take some time, but there's at least a roadmap and plan for this, right? And so I think that it's really awesome to see the community that was developing and growing around the Cypher protocol to kind of stand by, the protocol and the team as everybody, work through this unfortunate situation, right? Another one is I think that, it really hardens you as a founder or a builder in the space to kind of go through something like that. And it's definitely something that you will not forget anytime soon. And so I think that that's very much instilled a more, how do I say this? The team is more dedicated than ever to the protocol. Yeah, we were moving fast, building quickly, trying to continue the flywheel of the momentum that was built prior. And I think that, at the end of the day, you got to build quickly, but you also need to build safely. And I think it's instilled, kind of that back to more emphasis on the safety than building fast. And building fast is still obviously a top priority, especially in a space that moves incredibly quickly, right? But I think that those are two big things. But also to manage to get through something like this, I think definitely opens your eyes to a lot of things that you're not necessarily exposed to or would not have to navigate otherwise, which for better or for worse, I think makes the team stronger going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, as a previous user and an exploit victim, I can say wholeheartedly that I will be a future user, and to see you guys pick back up and carry forward, I think is awesome, and it's the way it should be, because I know there's a huge graveyard out there of protocols that have been hacked and then up and disappeared, and I just don't think that that's kind of how it should be, and I'm all for community support. And you know what, I've seen it even on Twitter today as well, rallying around the community and preparation for your guys' token launch. And I want to add or ask one more thing before we move into that, is kind of where I was leading before. Now that you're on the other side of it, is the focus on any one specific element of the DeFi pie? Is it a focus on perps first? Is it a focus on spot first? Or are you going to continue kind of everything all at once? Give me a little more feedback on that.
Yeah, I think, it'll be kind of like those three pillars that the protocol is really focused on prior. So you'll see the borrow lend, you'll see spot trading, and you'll see the derivatives, right? Specifically perps first. They'll be the most liquid. And as more liquidity comes into the Solana ecosystem, we'll work to roll out more offerings on that derivative side of things, right? And adding new features, more composability. I think that people will see a lot of new features upon the protocol relaunching after the IDO happens, as to opposed to what it was prior.
Sweet. Love it. Tell me more about the IDO taking place tomorrow.
Yeah. So we have chosen, the team has chosen to use a product built by some quality guys in the Solana ecosystem that I've known for quite a long time. The Sci Options team, Tommy, Gunny at Hero.
Yeah.
And I think that the, balancer style curve that is being implemented is something that is, one, unique, two, I think does a lot of, problem solving that other token launch mechanisms haven't really accomplished yet, right? And so, the market is the one that's pricing it similar to that in a Dutch auction, though you have some added, benefits of kind of manipulation deterrence with people just depositing unbelievable loads of money, artificially moving the price up and then pulling all of that liquidity, right before the clock stops. And I think that there are some, really good benefits of that. You should come to, a price that the market really agrees on, based off of everybody that is participating in this, mechanism. It, should result in better price discovery, less volatility after, the token goes live, as well as, there's some cool things like caps that are, actually a part of it. So, a single, account can't just buy all of the tokens. And I think that there's, some cool added benefits of that for it, right? And, super excited to be working with, the Armada team and some of the guys that we've known since, I became a part of the ecosystem in early, January of 21.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Armada, of course, fairly new to the scene, but I'm a huge fan of the hero guys. I don't know the Psi option guys too well, but I'll aim to change that. And as you said, like the balancer LBP mechanism is exactly what Solana's been missing. And I think it's an excellent iteration. And maybe a little brief shout out to Flowmatic that I guess is launching today. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a hot week for Armada showcase.
Yeah. And it's cool because we're both doing, slightly different mechanisms that Armada can do. I think that's like you have two teams going, very early in Armada's life cycle, and they're both kind of showcasing a couple of different major features that they have been able to, bring to the table to the Solana ecosystem.
Can you, I was kind of unaware in the difference. Can you give me a high level overview of the differences between the two launches?
Yeah, so I haven't done like too much research on how Flowmatic is going about it. They, from my understanding, and I apologize if I get this wrong, they are using the actual LBP pools and doing kind of like these batch auctions as opposed to the curve mechanism that Cypher will be using in launching the token. And so Cypher doesn't really have these tranches. There's not multiple curves. It's not really a pool, right? Like the LBC mechanism that Cypher is using is kind of like built based off of, like a virtual assets inside to kind of build this like initial curve and build the reflexivity for it. And I imagine that some of those parameters are definitely used in the pools and the auctions that Flowmatic is doing, but they're, doing these batches of kind of tranches that they're doing, right?
That's great. I'm gonna look into that further and maybe put out some content with the differences between the two. So thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's talk tokenomics. I know when you initially released the revamp, there was a little bit of pushback from the community about waiting and vesting. And then when I was preparing for the podcast, I was looking at a post from the other day and looking at the distribution, and I was going, this distribution actually looks great. I'm seeing like over 50% that goes to the community, which when I do the research papers, it's like one of the things I look for. I'm seeing team under 25%. I'm seeing a small amount to advisors, a fair amount to investors, and then an adequate amount for the liquidity mining. Was it a process? Was it an initial and a feedback with the community back and forth to kind of reach this end state?
I mean, there was definitely like input from the community. I actually don't believe the tokenomics changed like all that much from what we put out initially. There was always, so there was like tokenomics pre-exploit and then post-exploit, right? And the first iteration of post-exploit, those haven't really changed. Like, there was that 45.5% to the IDO, what was, allocated to investors of, early round in Cypher's life cycle. That didn't change. The liquidity mining stayed the same. I think people saw pushback or gave pushback was around the team allocation. And so what is being done about that is Cypher's team is going to allot tokens from their allocation to the IDO pool to reduce like team allocation, and then all of the tokens out of the team allocation that are sold, that the funding that comes from that goes directly to plugging the hole that was left by the exploit. And I think that with that stipulation change, I think it, really eased a lot of kind of the concerns that, some people had. And it was really only like 1-2 people that were being very loud about it. You're never going to please everybody at the end of the day, right? But I'm glad that, that the tokenomics are viewed in a positive light. We really tried to steer the protocol away from the, initial pitfalls that we saw from, Solana DeFi 1.0 tokens, low float, high FDV, bad price discovery, a ton of inflation. And I think
all owned by Alameda.
Yeah, that. But also, I think that something that Cypher has done that no other protocol in Solana has really accomplished is kind of this inherent value accrual to the token. I think that other protocols have value accrual to their token from, hey, stake this and get a share of the fees, right? Or they do buybacks. There's a number of like tokens like that out there, and those teams, are doing well. And so that's not what I'm saying, is that they're not only valueless tokens in the Solana ecosystem, but I think that Cypher has this unique mechanism that kind of provides it this inherent value to the utility token itself, and is a lot more similar to like an L1 token, right? Like it's used to perform actions on the protocol, and through that, some of the tokens do get burned, not dissimilar from other L1s, Solana included, right? And that helps bring value to this utility token in an inherent way, which I think is fairly unique to the Solana DeFi ecosystem. I'm sure there are other tokens out there, across the, many blockchain ecosystems that there are today. I know that there was almost like a Substack kind of protocol platform that used you use their native token to like subscribe to people's like blogs effectively, or Substacks.
Like Access is one.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Access Protocol. Yeah.
And so they're definitely like, but I wouldn't consider that like a DeFi protocol, right? And so that's something that we're like really excited to bring to the table. And I think that does really well to help shift and change the narrative of Solana ecosystem, like tokens, and kind of crypto at large, right? Like I think, unfortunately, most tokens that exist are just valueless governance tokens, and without value accrual to them in one way or the other, where it's like a commodity like utility token that Cypher is bringing to the table, or something that has fee sharing, revenue sharing aspects, right? I think that you need to have that value accrual to have a healthy token economy and really attract people to the ecosystem and use it as a way to get people excited about the protocol, get people into the community holding the token, and not just something that people use to dump and farm rewards, right?
I like it. Can you tell me a little bit about what the token will do on Cypher? Like any of the utility about what you have designed for it?
Yeah. So the number one thing is that it acts similar to like an L1 token, right? So on Solana or Ethereum or any of the L2s, right, you have this native L1 token that you have to spend for transactions to take place, right? And so Cypher is taking that model to the DEX space, and so Cypher's native token Cyph will be used for paying fees for trading, borrow lending. You will still, like, users that are borrowing will still have to pay like APYs of the asset that they're borrowing, but kind of like these other fees that are baked in by certain protocols, Cypher included, right, now are all paid in Cyph, and I think that is something that's really unique. There will be some other utility, right? The more you hold, the cheaper the trading fees are, the cheaper the borrowing fees are, as well as you'll be able to have like volume discounts if you're a large trader or a semi-large trader, right, at the end of the day. And I think that those are important mechanisms to also have. And I think also going forward, we'll probably bake in some other, cool, exciting utility mechanisms for people that are holding the token. Maybe some, locked escrow, like vote escrow tokens that, if you lock the, some X portion, the amount that is burned based off of, the transaction gets boosted, right? And so that provides like kind of this more aggressive mechanism of value accrual and kind of incentivizes people to hold and stake and lock these tokens as well. And so I see that as something that will probably come to the table relatively quickly as the platform gets back up and running.
Interesting. It makes me think of account abstraction, where you're going to be using your own token as sort of this gas token. Mm-hmm. And I guess my question is, if you're trading on Cypher and you've got Cypher, is it a prerequisite to hold Cypher? And are you still having to pay fees in Solana? And so my mind thinks like it's good for the token, but is that a barrier for traders because they have to pay an extra fee? Or is it more like it's not that it's an extra fee, it's just not coming out in USDC, it's coming out in Cypher? Like, can you explain that kind of mechanism a little more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, if you were to require people to have Cypher in their account to trade, that's a pretty big UX like friction point, right? And so Cypher will have an atomic swap mechanism where if you don't have Cypher, it will, and you want to perform a transaction, it will acquire the Cypher for, that user that's performing some, transaction, right? And I think that that's really important. That reduces the friction. So, somebody can just come deposit assets and begin utilizing the protocol, and it takes care of it on the back end, right? This is, effectively the same as like a gasless transaction on like an L1. And I think that, that's definitely important to have for, having any sort of great UX. The next thing you brought up, is it an extra fee? I wouldn't consider it an extra fee, right? Because if you're looking at like any other trading protocol, everybody is paying a fee. Instead of it being in USDC, right, it's just denoted in Cypher. And unlike every other trading platform that does BIPs, Cypher is one trade is one Cypher, right? And I think that that's something that's really cool and really unique to, Cypher and its ecosystem now, is that the fee is flat, right? Trade $10, trade $100, trade 1,000, a million in an order, right? And the more you trade, the higher the fee gets normally. Now you have a platform that has this flat fee, which I think is really exciting. It, becomes incredibly cheap for, traders that are moving size. And it's also going to be really cheap for kind of like everyday people anyway, right? Like one Cypher, whatever the price will be, I think will be, relatively cheap in general, considering I think a lot of platforms are like, if you're on an AMM, it's, 100 bips. Most order book based DEXes, you're in like the 10 to 5 bip range, or lower, right, depending on like some tier, right? And you can get lower on those tiers. The more Cypher you hold, the less Cypher it costs to trade in general.
I guess 2 comments. First one doesn't require an answer. Actually, maybe it does. You got the part of the token Cypher is going to be governance. And so if changes need to be made to this mechanism, they can be voted for and enacted?
Correct, yes.
And then number 2 is, do you see that potentially as something that inhibits the growth of Cypher because you won't be able to clip as much fees from larger traders or market makers?
I do not believe so. I think that what a protocol wants to do is be self-sustaining and create value to the token, right? And through this mechanism, value is accrued by the token. And the fees that are picked up, right? Like Cypher still collects fees, collects it in Cypher. It also has a spread on the borrow lend side of things, right? So somebody who's, borrowing, maybe the lend APY is 4% and the borrow APY is 6%. And so Cypher, the protocol itself, is taking a spread there too.
Okay.
Right. And so that's another way that the protocol like accrues value and you want to pay people, right, then there's a treasury that is accumulating. So you can pay contributors, you can have bug bounties, you can the DAO can enable the infrastructure to continue to be hosted. And so I don't think that it's necessary for a protocol to be taking in billions and billions of dollars of cash if the value is accrued by that token, right? And at the end of the day, like when people are like, oh, like this DEX makes money, they associate it with going back to the token or helping the token become more valuable. But inherently, by more volume, more trades, more users, Cypher becomes the token mechanism creates more value for the token in general, right? Natively. And I think that that's really the important differentiator and why, I don't necessarily see the need to have the protocol be pulling in all these, extra fees, right? When you can maintain a healthy treasury, you can maintain a healthy insurance fund through the mini mechanisms or the two major mechanisms of revenue for the protocol, right? Being Cypher and the spread on any of the assets that are in the borrow lend pools, right? And I think that that's something that is really important to categorize and explain, as that I think will probably get lost in translation to a lot of people.
Just made my head just start spinning, and the realization I just had is like, I've been doing a lot of protocol research and I've looked at a lot of perp DEXes on a lot of chains, and I think like the reason for the question is I'm always thinking, okay, well, how's the team going to get paid? They're running a business, so obviously they're trying to make money. And then listening to how you're kind of breaking this down and how you're setting it up is like you're building this DEX to benefit the token. You're not just having a DEX that has a token that people can speculate on and vote with. You're like, no, like the protocol and the token are synonymous. The value goes to the token and the holders in this decentralized fashion. We can vote on it, we can make changes, but it's not about padding our pockets. It's about success with the protocol. And like,
yeah, exactly, right? I think that that's the really cool thing about L1 tokens is that they have this innate value accrual mechanism. The more it's used, the more valuable the token is, right? And Cypher is designed in that way. And I think that that's how you really want to have a protocol and have a token that is a real utility token, right? Because they can't function without one another. And I think that that's something that's really important and often lost in the space nowadays of people just like launching tokens and I think it's really important to focus on having a decentralized protocol and have something that benefits the collective whole as opposed to the team just paying themselves, right? Like, because the treasury will be accumulated, people will be able to get paid, etc. And that's anybody that will be contributing to the protocol going forward and in the future as well. And so I think it's really important about building that healthy, robust token economy and having something that is actually utilized and meaningful to the protocol.
Epic. I love it. Nice. Yeah, very pleased with how that went. Good job. Wasn't expecting for that to happen, and then it happened. I'm just sort of out of words.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad.
One more. Yeah, nice. Well done, sir. One more question about the tokenomics.
Yeah.
Is vesting schedules for the team and the investors. I couldn't see them. Can you tell me about how they are, how the lockup goes?
They're public. They're in the Telegram chat and I believe Discord. The original rounds are 2.5% unlock, 6-month cliff, and then 23 months of linear vesting after that 6 months cliff. So a total of 29 months. The team is a 5% unlock, 10-month cliff, and 36 months vesting after that 10-month cliff.
Perfect. Exactly what I wanted to hear. I'll source out that and I'll.
It's pinned in the Telegram.
Of course it is. This is just a bad researcher.
It's okay. Somebody was on Twitter earlier today, you know, saying that we hadn't posted anything about it, and I was like, that's just not true.
You know what? I found that, and then that's how I added the question. I was like, I meant to look for it, never found it, added the question, like, gotta ask.
It's okay.
Sad.
It's okay.
So sad. But you know what? Now we have the truth. So we
Now
can move on
everybody
with
will
it.
see on the pod.
I'm going to redact a whole lot of stuff that makes me look like an idiot, but the truth will be shown. Let's go. Okay. Moving away from that, looking into the future a little bit. Mm-hmm. You're a well-connected man. You know a lot of people in the Solana space. How are you approaching like partnerships? Like one of your buddies, Edgar, is on MarginFi, and part of their thing initially was the prime brokerage, and they're all about the liquidity. And I know you yourself are doing lending. Is there any way that you can team up and be like, look, you got all this dollar bills. How can we embed it in the front end or the back end and work as a squad? So I'm shooting that one out of nowhere, but talk to me about partnerships, collaboration, composability.
Yeah. So I think that there's like a number of things on like the partnership and composability front. Cypher, previously was integrated in OpenBook. Upon relaunch, it'll be Phoenix in OpenBook. We will also have Jupiter Swap added into the protocol as well. Borrow lending is there. I think that, any chance we get to collaborate with teams, we're always eager. I think that, we're excited. The protocol will be open sourced prior to relaunch as well. To move towards a truly decentralized, protocol in having the ease of composability there for anybody. And so, how we exactly utilize MarginFi liquidity, we'll see how that one goes. I think there's a lot of like creative things that we can do with that team. They're a super strong team, build a lot of incredible products. So definitely something that we can do. I think like initially it'll be kind of those like DEX integrations first that you'll see, and then trying to ease the flow of liquidity between other protocols and Cypher, definitely on like the top of the list. And then you're also starting to see like a number of these cool kind of automated trading bots or on-chain trading programs kind of spin up. We chatted, with the FedEx team. They're pretty cool. I know they're also building, I think, on Hero Network as well, but they're doing some cool stuff.
SpedX.
Yeah, SPEDX.
Nice.
Those guys are cool. I just saw. Oh, dude, it was like, I believe they're in this recent hackathon. It's like a Java tooling for market making, I believe. Which I think is pretty interesting. There's also an individual that I know building some pretty cool stuff that's a part of the hackathon. I won't spill the beans on anything that he is working on, but definitely something that we will be integrating on unifying liquidity across different order books, which I think is really exciting. And so that'll be, one of the new features coming to Cypher upon relaunch as well. And so I think that'll be, I think there's a lot of really cool things on the unification of liquidity that we're pushing towards. And, anything on the trading side of things will definitely also be working hard to integrate as fast as we can as well.
Sweet. You would swear I wasn't recording this, so I'm just like feverishly taking notes. I'm like, I could probably just rewatch it, but when you get excited, you can't help it.
Yeah.
Getting the alpha for my own podcast, I'm just like,
yeah. He's like, I got to make the tweet prior to the launch of the pod.
Oh, that's gold. Yeah, you mentioned Hero's ecosystem, and it kind of made me think about Gunny's the zero dated futures. And I'm just like, I kicked it around with him, and I kick it around with any of the like perp DEXes that I chat on, because I've just, this goal that I have, even though I'm not a builder, is I want to see Solana ecosystem tokens traded on perp DEXes. I don't want to see just Avalanche and Arbitrum and all these EVM tokens. Like, I get it, they got the liquidity. I want to solve this liquidity issue. And like, I feel like that's a massive unlock. And like somebody's got to be on the side of the trade, but like then you talk to Gunny in the zero data futures, and so I'm like very keenly watching how the guys on like YOLO bot are iterating, like Flowmatic. I can see that they're talking about it. It's very interesting. I don't know if you've thought about it at all.
So I think that there's a couple things to unpack there, right? Yes, zero day futures are cool. It allows you to kind of spin up markets that may be a little bit less liquid for perps kind of immediately. I think that really the core issue of that is that there's nothing exciting to trade, right? You have a lot of, for lack of a better term, banged up tokens, right?
Absolutely.
And that they don't have a lot of excitement about, they don't have a lot of liquidity around. And so what that really means is teams that are launching tokens or have tokens have to figure out how to make their token exciting, how to have value accrual, because that's what people want, right? Like nobody wants to ape into another useless governance token. Everybody saw what happened, right? Across both all the ecosystems, Solana for sure, right? And so I think that is more of an issue from teams, right? Like there's something wrong with how people are building or structuring tokens for their protocol. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed first. I mean, and all these tokens that exist today, right, on Solana, they'll all get a boost as a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So as more excitement comes back, all these tokens will kind of get more volume again. But I think it's important to figure out how to drive value back to the token, how to make the token exciting, how to make the protocol exciting. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have users and you don't have people that want to use the protocol or the token, etc., then nobody's going to buy the token, right? And nobody's going to trade the token, and then you're back to where we are today, and doesn't matter. That's why there's a reason that perp protocols don't have a ton of other Solana tokens listed for perps, because it's just not interest. And so that's like an ecosystem problem. And teams in the ecosystem need to be the ones that are tackling those issues. And I think you can design all the cool derivatives products you want to like help ease that. But at the end of the day, if there aren't exciting tokens, then it doesn't matter.
Well, I guess the good news is a year from now, there will be a plethora of new Solana tokens. And maybe this issue will solve itself, because the infra's kind of being built now, and well, you helping to kickstart the new Solana ecosystem. There's faith. I'll give you that.
I'm a believer. I think there's a lot of strong teams that don't have tokens. I think there's a lot of strong teams that have tokens, and they'll figure it out. I think that it's becoming more of like an open discussion, tokenomics, how to have value accrual. I think Cypher's put out something really cool, really unique. We'll see if other people adopt that mechanism. I'm sure people will be like, well, how's it going to go for them first? But hey, I think it's all about experimentation, and if you're not willing to kind of step outside of like the box that a lot of tokens just exist in, right? Like, hey, we're a gov token and that's what we do. Then you won't have cool iteration that develops in the ecosystem, and people can take what works and what doesn't work, right? Like there's a reason that we came up with a cool mechanism, and learn from all the people that came before us that launched tokens, right? It's easier to come after than before, always. And so I think that'll change, and you'll see existing tokens begin to have value accrual, and you'll see a lot of strong teams, MarginFi, Jito, Drift, Zeta, etc. You'll see a lot of them launch tokens here in probably the not too distant future. And I'm sure that
Backpack, Jupiter.
Yeah. Meteor is right around the corner too, I think.
Yeah, true.
I think that they all had the chance to observe 1.0, and it's time to make 2.0, a thing, like, and help build a cumulative war chest for the entire Solana ecosystem. People can have fun on chain.
I love it. You know what? Competition is fierce, and it's also healthy. So I'm happy to hear you guys are coming back, and you're going to be taking some market share from some Drift and Zeta. They better watch their backs.
I think that more importantly than taking market share it's growing the pie, right? Like, we're just going to, keep trading the same 200 DAUs. Like, nobody's ever going to grow huge
Absolutely.
if that's the case. And so you need to build stuff that excites people. You need to have tokens that excite people. You need to get people from other ecosystems here using the applications. The UX is good. A lot of these teams have good apps, good UX, etc. And so, I think that, more important than like me trying to go vampire attack some protocol in Solana, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, no offense to anybody here, and Cypher included, prior to the exploit, nobody was like huge, big incumbent that like couldn't be overcome. You just have to build something that people want to use, and you got to have a token that people want to have, and you got to have value. It's got to be good, good utility, etc. And I think that those are important things that help grow the pie for everybody, and everybody benefits from that, right? And so it's less about fighting to steal market share today. I mean, like, obviously, we're all competitive. We're all founders. We all are like, our product is better, right? And we all want to win. And so, like, you're going to try and steal some, but like, at the end of the day, if you're just solely trying to do that, that's not a recipe for success for any protocol, right? And so you need to, be able to grow the pie. You need to be able to bring new people on to Solana.
Absolutely. Eloquently said, and very true. I had Tristan on the other day for Zeta, and his was the same thing. Like, it's about growing the pie. It's not about attacking one another for the small daily active users we have now. It's about keeping the Solana narrative going, keeping it shiny, and changing the way people perceive it. And just having sick-ass protocols. Yeah.
Having fun, dude. Having
fun. Breakpoint. Having fun.
Bingo.
Okay, this has been fun. I think before I get to kind of my last fun question, is there anything you want to add? Maybe tell the people where they can find you, that kind of good stuff. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, number one, go follow Cypher Protocol on Twitter. It's Cypher, CYPHER _protocol on Twitter. Join the Telegram, join the Discord, be a part of the community, turn notifications on. Tomorrow's, we'll probably drop some links. And then again, links will get dropped again on Wednesday, the 25th. But I think that those are like the best places to stay up to date. If you want to follow me, it's Barrett _IO or Cobra on Twitter. Having a good time, I shit post with the best of them.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yeah. I think number one, go follow Cypher. Stay tuned. It's gonna be a fun ride. We don't plan on going anywhere.
Speaking of fun as well, the topless movement is live. You're up there, you're rock climbing. What is it like training to be added to the Mad Lads roster? Tell me.
Oh, I'm not training to be on the Mad Lads roster. It's just a lifestyle, Like, I love getting outside, dude. That's how I stay sane. Some people go to the gym. I don't lift weights, I go ski. I try and get outside. I go play golf. I think that at the end of the day, getting outside is like my form of staying sane in this industry. And so I think that that's like hopefully maybe one day they'll sign me to the roster. But either way, I'm going to keep doing what I do and have fun outside. Yeah.
Tristan,
if you're watching,
you guys heard that? New roster application.
Sign your boy.
Listen, I also do extreme sports because I also play golf. So
there you go.
Bogey boys.
Dude, the bogey boys.
Oh, dude, this was fun. I enjoyed this a lot.
I'm glad. Me too. Me too. I had a good time. Good questions, Thanks for not throwing just softballs out there.
We do what we can. We do what we can on the Dirt Diggler podcast. Oh, man. Okay, you know what? Take care, and I will see you at Breakpoint, sir.
All right, sounds good, my man.
Cheers.